You're going to violate the process here, then no, you can't get unanimous
Mr.
consent to
Polyev, I
violate the
am
process.
not violating the process.
Well, looks like the new opposition proposition is going to pass. So they're going to be looking into how the government responded to COVID-19 and how they're going to change going forward. So check this out. It's a goodie. Friday.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Testing Centre recently had to close due to staff burnout in Coquitlam. This left residents in the area waiting for days for results for their COVID-19 tests. So it's unfortunate that the member for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, spent the week trying to prevent Canadians from getting answers on COVID-19 rapid tests, as he did in his speech to the House yesterday, and as he did in Health Committee when he oversaw Liberals trying to gut our motion on the same. So, very simple question, because I don't think any Liberal has raised this in the House yet. When will COVID-19 rapid tests be widely available in Coquitlam?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, and thank the Honourable Member for the question. Mr. Speaker, we've said from day one, testing is one of the most important tools we have to respond to COVID-19. We are working around the clock to review and approve new testing technologies every day. We've already approved several of these tests, and we can expect more as the technology develops. Rapid tests have arisen, and rapid tests will be disseminated throughout the provinces and all of the rest of the country very, very soon.
Well, member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Very, very soon. That's great. That's that guy, I got to tell you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this week in Richmond Hill, people were being prevented from traveling to reunite with family members abroad because they don't have access to COVID-19 rapid tests. Rapid tests are now often needed to board flights to international destinations, especially for family reunification, but people can't get their results because the Liberals have failed to get rapid tests. They're not widely available. So a very simple question for the residents in Richmond Hill. When will rapid tests be widely available to them?
Honourable Parliament Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. We have, as we've said, we know the importance of having quick access to test results, and we are fast-tracking the review of COVID tests across the country, including rapid response test kits. We will continue to work with the provinces and territories to ensure that the people who need to be tested are able to be tested and will get these rapid tests.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I believe it's the member from Gatineau that's actually responsible for helping to procure rapid tests, and yet in Gatineau, there's some of the longest lines for COVID tests. People are waiting for days. They're waiting for days for this. The member from Gatineau, I believe, also has some role in procurement, which means that he would have known that Plum Liberal insider Frank Bayliss would have gotten this great contract instead of getting rapid tests for the people of Gatineau. So a question for his colleague. When will rapid tests be widely available to the people of Gatineau?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And, early diagnosis is critical to slowing and reducing the spread of COVID-19 in Canada. We've made emergency changes to allow faster access to COVID-19 tests in Canada. And through the Safe Restart program, we've provided billions to provinces to help them build their capacity. Mr. Speaker, we are on this.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Okay, Mr. Speaker, I'll take the government at its word. Are they honest? They said for 5 years we're whiter than white when it comes to digital appointments. They have to admit that, in fact, this white is full of Liberal red spots. For 3 days, the minister has not given a clear and honest answer. Can the Minister of Justice, who is an honourable man, an academic, can he reassure the House that never the judicial appointment process has had any interventions from anybody in the Liberal Party? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister or Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question. I can assure the member opposite, like the Minister himself said, he was under no partisan pressure when it came to judicial appointments. Judges are appointed through a strong process based on merit, And the goal is to diversify the judicial appointments across Canada. It's a change for the good, and it's a step in the right direction. Thank you. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent, according to testimony from Radio Canada, it's exactly the opposite that has occurred. A former employee of the minister's office said the opposite. What was he referring to? He was referring to the Liberalist list, the Friends of the Liberal Party. So people who had put up Liberal signs or contributed to the Liberal Party before an election. Can the minister assure us that the whole process from start to finish was impartial? Yes or no? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. What I can stress for the member opposite is that partisan pressure never had an impact on the appointment of a judge by the Minister of Justice. We take this process very seriously. It's merit-based. Candidates are high-caliber candidates. Our goal is to diversify the courts. And this goal has shown good results. For example, the number of women appointed by our government is more than 50%, which is much higher than under the Conservative parties in the past. The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois sincerely thanks the guardian angels saving lives in long-term care homes. Among them, we find hundreds of asylum seekers who have risked their lives for Quebec seniors. The Bloc Québécois supports the will of this government and the government of Quebec to grant them permanent residency for their exceptional services rendered. 2 months after the announcement, however, the program still doesn't exist, and the department has implied that it might still take months. When will our guardian angels finally be able to apply? The Honourable Minister or Parliamentary Secretary. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the extraordinary work done by the guardian angels, the men and women who have dedicated themselves since the beginning to helping, and they have made a real difference for so many people by providing them with support, by feeding them, washing them, etc. But there is one thing, Mr. Speaker, the government recognized this work and is working with them. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, obviously, we do support this process with all our hearts, but we simply want the federal government to show as much dedication to these guardian angels as they have showed for Quebec seniors. We are concerned because already before COVID, Ottawa took years to process various immigration applications. People have had the time to settle in Quebec, find employment, start a family before they got an update from the federal government, and often they got bad news. When will the guardian angels finally be able to apply for permanent residency? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, once again, we highlight the work of these guardian angels. I know a number of them, in fact, and they come from my part of Montreal, and I'm happy that the Bloc Québécois is raising this point because it's extremely important. It's important to recognize everything these people have done since the beginning, the sacrifices that they have made, personal sacrifices often. It has not gone unnoticed, and the Government of Canada will work with them.
Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, in Nova Scotia, Mi'kmaq fisheries have faced violence and had their property destroyed. In Ontario, Haudenosaunee land defenders had guns turned on them. There are reports that some have been shot by police with rubber bullets. Despite their love of talking about the right thing, Liberals have failed to negotiate in good faith and do the right thing. The federal government has the power to ensure a peaceful resolution and ensure that we move forward and that no one else is hurt. Why do Indigenous people have to fight this government for their very rights every step of the way?
The Honourable Minister or Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government believes the best way to resolve outstanding issues is through a respectful and collaborative dialogue, which is vital to building stronger relationships and advancing reconciliation for the benefit of Indigenous communities and all Canadians. We deeply value our relationship with Six Nations. We are committed to continuing to work collaboratively to address their historical claims and land rights issues. Our government is actively working with the community and look forward to meeting at the earliest opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, that's not good enough. This week, an Ontario court sided with private developers and applied a permanent injunction against the Haudenosaunee people on their own traditional territories at 1492 Landback Lane. Last night, the OPP opened fire on land defenders with rubber bullets, setting the stage for a sharp escalation in violence there. This conflict is not new, Mr. Speaker. It is the direct result of this government's refusal to negotiate these land claims in good faith, resulting in this violence. When will this government finally get back to the table with the Haudenosaunee Confederacy Council and allow these claims to be peacefully settled?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, Canada deeply values its relationship with Six Nations and is committed to continuing to work collaboratively to address the Six Nations' historical claims and land issues. We have put in place flexible processes to allow for the exploration of new ways to achieve this goal, such as those identified in the COIL report. This independent report and the fact finders marked an important first step in opening lines of communication at that time, and also helped build understanding of the negotiations and discussions that followed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, on numerous occasions, this Prime Minister boasted that Canada is back in the business of peacekeeping. But like everything else, it was just another empty promise. In February 2019, this government's officials told the Standing Committee on National Defence the Quick Reaction Force has been entered into the UN Capability Registry. Well, now, according to Global Affairs and the United Nations, Canada never registered the Quick Reaction Force. Why did the Liberal government mislead the Defence Committee?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary and Minister of National Defence.
I thank my honourable colleague for that question, and we very much regret that that was an honest mistake before the committee. But I do reassure him that we did promise Canadians that we would renew our commitment to peacekeeping, and that's exactly what we are doing. Our aviation task force in Mali provided life-saving medical evacuation and tactical airlifts for the United Nations forces in Mali, and following a temporary operational pause due to COVID-19, the tactical detachment in Uganda completed a mission in Entebbe, Uganda. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister made all sorts of promises about his big plans for peacekeeping. But now that he suffered an embarrassing loss for his coveted UN Security Council seat, all those promised troops have disappeared. In fact, the Prime Minister has let the number of troops that Canada has on UN missions fall to zero. Nada, nothing. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government misled a parliamentary committee into believing Canada had registered the Quick Reaction Force. A tweeted acknowledgement of the error means nothing. Will the Minister of Foreign Affairs do the right thing and table an official apology for misleading Parliament?
The Honourable Minister or Parliament Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for this very important question. And I think as all parliamentarians, we should be proud of Canadian forces which have been operating around the world in peacekeeping operation. I had the privilege, Mr. Speaker, to spend some time with them in Mali at the MINUSMA. Many of our men and women in uniform are making a real difference, and I can assure the member that Canada will be continuing to be a key component of UN peacekeeping force around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Richmond North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals are giving a $237 million contract to another friend of the Liberal Party, former MP Frank Baylis, restaurants and bars in Quebec are closed because of COVID. Their situation is critical. One of the solutions to help them would be to give them access to rapid tests. Why can our restaurant owners, businesses and provinces not have access where elsewhere in the world they have been using them for months? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary or Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for the question. As we've said in this House numerous times, testing is one of the most important tools that we have to respond to COVID-19, and we are working around the clock to review and approve new testing technologies. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that rapid tests are arriving daily and being moved across the country daily. Thank you.
The honourable member for Richmond North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, Major countries around the world have been having access to these for months. So why are we not able to get them? I talked about restaurants and bars, but there's also the aviation sector, travel agencies. They are in survival mode right now. They are also waiting for these rapid tests and already have been doing so for months. When will it be? When it's time to give money to Liberal friends, it doesn't take long, just a few days, and millions are spent. But when we have to spend money on our companies, the money never comes in order to pay for these rapid tests. Why? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
And again, Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. Again, we are approving tests on a regular basis. We are receiving tests on a regular basis. We have our own process through Health Canada. We have our own, we rely on our own testing data, and we have our own approvals process. From the beginning, Mr. Speaker, we've had faith and we have followed science and data on our response to COVID-19, and we will continue to do so.
Member for Kenora.
Mr. Speaker, Nishnawbe First Nation in my riding has been under a boil water advisory for 25 years. Now, due to the shutdown of their water treatment plant, many community members are being forced to evacuate. This is by all accounts a public health emergency, and one that could have been prevented if action had been taken sooner. This government has shown that they can spend billions of dollars to address a crisis within a very short time frame. So when will they finally eliminate all long-term drinking water advisories on reserve?
The Honourable Minister or Parliament Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're deeply concerned by the shutdown of Nishnawbe's water distribution system, and we're actively working with community leadership to find immediate and long-term solutions to this health emergency. We're funding the repairs needed and the temporary evacuation of community members, as well as working with the Ontario government to ensure seamless access to health services and that appropriate public health precautions are taken to safeguard evacuees. We will not rest until Nishnawbe has access to clean and reliable drinking water.
For Kenora.
The issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is an issue that is unfortunately very close to many people in my riding, Mr. Speaker. Over the past 8 years, half of Ontario's identified cases took place in the Kenora region. So I was very disappointed to learn that the government is planning to sit on the results of the final MMI-WG report. Mr. Speaker, my question is simple. When will this government present a real plan to keep Indigenous women and girls safe?
The Honourable Minister or Parliament Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the voices of Indigenous women are essential to our journey of reconciliation, and the work done by the Commission on the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Children are essential to a path forward, and we will be working with all parties, Indigenous leadership, involved in order to ensure that we meet and exceed the expectations put forward in the report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, over half of the population of the Haut-Karabakh was displaced due to ongoing fighting. Over 90% are women and children. Let's not forget this is happening in the middle of a pandemic. The Armenian community is on the Hill today to show its grave concerns about the worsening conflict. The mayor of Laval also wrote to the Prime Minister to express concerns of the Quebec Armenian community, but there's only been radio silence from him. Can the government explain concretely what it is doing to ensure peaceful resolution to the conflict in Upper Karabakh? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for the question. As my colleague knows full well, Canada has been one of the first voices in the world to ensure that there would be a de-escalation in the conflict. I was last week in Europe to meet with our partners, including the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. We will continue to help to ensure a de-escalation and a lasting ceasefire. Yesterday, we announced humanitarian emergency aid of more than $325 million. Mr. Speaker, we are all concerned by the Armenian conflict, and we will continue to show leadership in order to. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Small businesses in my community, they are the heartbeat of our community. They are our lively social hubs, they are what bring community together, and they are the economic drivers and employers for my community. And they have been hard hit by this pandemic. I have seen and spoken with so many of our local business owners and BIAs, and I want to thank them for reaching out and for sharing with me their insights, which have helped to shape our government's policies. I am committed to continuing to work with them, and I want to thank our community for stepping up and showing support for our local businesses in this difficult time. Because together, we will get through this, we will be stronger, and we will have lively, strong main streets throughout our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Back to a video conference, the Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding, the wine industry is an important part of the economy, and it has been directly affected by COVID. Most of the smaller wineries here rely on sales to restaurants, direct-to-consumer online sales, and sales to visitors. When restaurants closed and tourists stopped coming, these wineries were significantly impacted. And while online sales increased, the BC wine industry still faces interprovincial trade barriers that ban that practice. That must change. And in the middle of the pandemic, the federal government removed one of the most critical supports for the industry by canceling the excise tax exemption for Canadian wines. They must quickly replace that with trade legal support, such as that proposed by Wine Growers Canada. I want to close by mentioning the untimely passing of David Wilson, the former chair of the Canadian Vintners Association. Mr. Wilson always brought intelligent conversation and fine Okanagan wines to our meetings in Ottawa. He left us too soon, and he will be missed.
The Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honour the remarkable life of Fanny Goose, a constituent and longtime business leader in London who passed away in her 99th year this April. Fanny, or the First Lady of Downtown as she was known, was a remarkable woman who experienced the best and worst that our world can offer. A Holocaust survivor who came to Canada in 1949, Fanny and her husband realized the Canadian dream by founding a retail business that became a pillar of London's downtown for over 50 years. Mr. Speaker, Fanny was sought out for direct and savvy advice. Always politically engaged, she had her finger on the pulse of the community. Fanny was kind, confident, thoughtful, and always had a positive outlook. She was predeceased by her husband Jerry, mother to Steve Goose Garrison and Martin Goose, and loving Bubby to 3 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren. Fanny, rest in eternal peace. Your legacy will live on for generations to come. Thank you.
By video, the Honourable Member for Tobique-Mactaquac.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I would like to pay tribute and give congratulations to one of the most important individuals in my life, my father. My dad, Gary Bragdon, after more than 50 years of dedicated hard work, will be retiring from the Nakiwik pulp mill this weekend. He worked tirelessly to provide for his wife and his 4 children. His metal lunch bucket became an important symbol for me during my campaign to be a member of this House. It serves as a constant reminder of who I am representing. Those who carry the buckets, work in our mills and our factories, wait on our tables, truck our foods, harvest our natural resources, run small businesses, fish our waters, grow our food, and literally keep our land. Mr. Speaker, these are the people who in large part make Canada what it is, and the people that will drive Canada's economy into recovery and back into prosperity. I keep my father's bucket in my office in Ottawa as a constant reminder of who sent me here as their representative. Dad, congratulations on your retirement, and I can assure you that on this side of the House, we will remember those who carry the buckets.
The Honourable Member for St. John, Rothsay.
Mr. Speaker, the development of small modular reactor technology is key to building Atlantic Canada's economy back better. SMRs are safe, reliable, transportable, and emissions-free. And the science is clear. We simply cannot achieve net zero by 2050 without them. Atlantic Canada's strategic geographic position, skills base, and transportation infrastructure position it to become a world leader in SMR development and manufacturing. Our region's SMR sector, which is based in my riding of St. John Rothsay, has the potential to create thousands of highly skilled, well-paying, sustainable green jobs across our region. That's why I'm proud to be part of a federal government that is committed to making the investments necessary to fully leverage the economic potential of our SMR sector. It's also why I'm working closely with my federal colleagues across Atlantic Canada, as well as my provincial counterparts in New Brunswick, to deliver the federal and provincial investments necessary to seize this historic opportunity.
L'honorable député de Argenteuil-La-Petite.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to mention Small Business Week, which will be ending tomorrow. It's an opportunity to show our support for small businesses in our country, and specifically in my riding, Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. The last few months have been particularly difficult for small business, but our entrepreneurs have shown resilience, determination, and innovation. Our government is there to support them thanks to various measures, like the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, the extension of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and broadening the Canada Emergency Business Account. I'm thinking about business owners in my riding, like Félix Marcoux at the Petit Chef Bakery, Anna Boyer from the Montebello Cheesemakers, Charles Arlin Carrière from Orientec, and others. I would encourage everyone to support our local businesses, which make our communities thrive. Thank you.
Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor a trailblazer, a role model, an inspiring leader who has achieved heights never reached before. I extend my heartfelt congratulations to Lieutenant Colonel Riel Erickson from my riding at Foothills as being named the commander of the Canadian Forces Flying School in Moose Jaw. A farm girl raised in Millerville, Erickson is the first woman to take command of 2 Canadian Forces Flying School, the center of pilot training in the country. Erickson was inspired to join the military by her uncle, who was a fighter pilot in the Gulf War. A graduate of Oilfields High School, Riel earned her rings in 2005 and became just the 5th woman in the history of the Royal Canadian Air Force to become a CF-18 pilot. In her impressive career, she has faced many obstacles, including Russian bombers. But in doing so, she earned the nickname Guns. From her humble roots in southern Alberta, she has turned into a strong leader and a fierce pilot. And she has proven the sky is the limit. Her parents, her husband, her sons, her community are extremely proud. She has said, "I can't wait till we run out of firsts." Through her leadership, she is proving that to be true.
Back to video conference and the Honourable Member for Yukon.
Tomorrow is World Polio Day, a day to celebrate the world's progress against polio and our resolve to end this horrible disease once and for all. Recently, Africa was certified free of the wild polio virus, a big milestone. But COVID-19 caused 50 million children to miss their polio vaccinations. So sustained action is critical to protect global health. If we stop now, 200,000 children a year could be paralyzed. In May, Canada committed $190 million to the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, building on past contributions are something that all Canadians can be proud of. Please join me in marking World Polio Day by thanking all who contribute to polio eradication, including Rotary clubs across Canada and the Whitehorse Rotary Club, who sponsored polio survivor Yukon's Ramish Parish's epic fundraising hand cycle tour, 7,140 kilometers across Canada. Because of all your actions, 18 million people who could otherwise be paralyzed are now walking. Let's keep it up.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, as Remembrance Day and the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain approach, it is important we recognize, remember, and honor the contributions of all who have served and continue to serve this nation as members of our Canadian Armed Forces. This November 11th, we will remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. We will not, nor shall we ever forget the contributions of those heroes who never made it home. As such, I would like to bring attention to the important recovery work of a World War II bomber, British Short Sterling, which is now happening in the Netherlands. That bomber was lost in 1943, returning from a raid over Germany. On board was a crew of 7, including 2 Canadians. Sergeant John Francis James McCaw, 20, the youngest crew member from Belleville, Ontario, and Flying Officer Harry Gregory Farrington, 24, from Niagara Falls, Ontario. Mr. Speaker, we must and we will continue to remember them. They sacrificed their tomorrows so that we could enjoy the peace and freedoms of today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mission, Matsqui Fraser Canyon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's Small Business Month, and I want to give a shout out to a business in my riding, Bear Country Bakery in Mission, British Columbia. I'm highlighting Bear Country Bakery because the owners, the Popma family, heard that our Royal Canadian Legions were hurting this year and wanted to do something about it. They stepped up and held a donut fundraiser on October 17, which saw over $1,100 in donut sales, plus individual donations going to Legion Branch 57. They continue to raise funds, and their next outdoor fundraiser for veterans is on Saturday, November 7th. I encourage everyone in Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon to buy a box of donuts and support Bear Country Bakery and our Royal Canadian Legion. It's community-minded businesses like these whose contributions make a real difference and keep our towns and cities strong. Thank you, Bear Country Bakery. Thank you to our veterans and committed members of our legions across Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
As a proud Albertan and an alumnus of the University of Alberta, it is my great honor to rise in recognition of University of Alberta virologist Dr. Michael Houghton. Earlier this month, Dr. Houghton was awarded the 2020 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his discovery of the hepatitis C virus. Hepatitis C is a global pandemic, but now, thanks to Dr. Houghton and his subsequent work developing blood tests and therapeutics for the disease, millions of people have a new lease on life, and our blood supply is safer. It's an incredible achievement and a wonderful story, and it doesn't end there. Dr. Houghton has created a vaccine against hepatitis C that is now being tested, and he is leading efforts to create a COVID-19 vaccine. Congratulations, Dr. Houghton. You've made us all proud, and we are very thankful for your work.
Député de Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans.
The honourable member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, during the 24th Culture Day celebration in Quebec, people in the arts and culture sector were celebrated. This is such an important sector, and it allows our culture to thrive, a culture that is recognized throughout the world. For the last several months, our cultural sector has taken a dire hit, but it is a resilient sector. I would like to congratulate all those who are continuing to support our Quebec cultural sector. I'd like to thank all artists and creators who are continuing to invent stories, dreams, and beauty for us. I know the sector is worried, but it is still an essential economic and social force in Quebec. On behalf of all my colleagues from the Bloc Québécois, I would say to all these wonderful people who make life beautiful, I would say we need you in order to be happy. Thank you.
The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, since the Prime Minister was slow to act back in January, the virus was allowed to infiltrate and spread across Canada for several months unchecked. While the government focused on cases and deaths, they completely ignored other types of casualties. TD Bank, while declared an essential service, used the pandemic as an excuse to close its branch in Petawawa. Petawawa is home to Canada's largest community of veterans and their widows. Seniors, careful to avoid being defrauded by electronic banking, prefer to deal with human tellers. The tellers are predominantly women, so those who worked at the Petawawa branch have lost their postings at that location. Groping a reporter, elbowing a female MP in the chest, firing female cabinet members, and now this failure in dealing with the pandemic, costly symbolic gestures aside, this self-proclaimed feminist Prime Minister has failed Canadian women at every turn.
By video conference, the honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to highlight that just before Thanksgiving, a new local newspaper joined Kitchener-Conestoga. The Wilmot Post started and is run by a group of active members in our community who volunteered their time to deliver local news, family milestones, local sports, and more, sharing stories with our community and amplifying our voices. I want to extend a warm welcome to the Wilmot Post and look forward to seeing the paper grow in the coming months. And I would like to share that Radio, Television, Digital News Association has honored Kitchener's 570 News with the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award for Outstanding Newscast in Small Market Radio. Congratulations. I look forward to supporting local journalism, whether reading, watching, or listening at home, or standing in the House of Commons and advocating its merits for our community in Kitchener-Conestoga and communities throughout Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.